Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my September wrap-up. This month was the month of quantity. I read a ton of books this month, but when you actually look at them all, so many of them were novellas and graphic novels and stuff. I actually only read 7, I believe, full novels, and then I read a bunch of graphic novels and novellas as well. So let's get into it. First up, I read Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This was a reread for me. Last month I reread Gideon the Ninth because Nona the Ninth came out in September. So I reread Harrow the Ninth, gave it 5 stars again. This series is honestly the perfect series for rereads because every time you read it, you pick up on more and more stuff. Tamsin Muir has intentionally made this story kind of confusing, and she does not explain, she's not explicitly telling you what's going on all the time. So you really do have to use those analytical reading skills to kind of pick up on everything that's going on. So every reread, I'm getting more and more information, and it's making me love the series more and more every time. Honestly, Tamsin Muir, I want to know what her outlining was like because this story is just so wildly crafted. I cannot imagine how she has planned this all out and how she's dropping these little tidbits of information. It's honestly stunning. So again, I talk about it all the time, highly recommend this series. Go give it a read. It's about lesbian necromancers in space. So go read it. Next up, I read Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This was Stephen King's new release, and it was kind of like a portal fantasy kind of story, and I have a full dedicated review that I will link above. I didn't like this story. This book just didn't work for me. I know that some people are loving it, but a lot of the criticisms that people have of it are similar to mine. Just some people liked it more than I did. This one just, the pacing was whack. The characters I didn't really care about. The plot was not engaging. I didn't really love this book. So I gave this one 2 stars. Again, you can go check out my dedicated review to see my full thoughts if you're interested. I had really high hopes for a Stephen King fantasy, but it's okay. It's just not what I expected, honestly. Next up, I read Demon in White by Christopher Rocchio. This is the 3rd book in the Sun Eater series. I've been participating in the Grimoire read-along hosted by Alex over on Tall Guy Reads and Theo from Rekindled Reader. I will link their channels down below. But on their Discord, they're hosting a Sun Eater read-along, and last month we did Demon in White. And man, Christopher Rocchio knocked it out of the park again. I still think that Howling Dark has been my favorite so far just because of the setting. I honestly just absolutely loved the setting for Howling Dark. But Demon in White, we learned so much more lore about... I don't want to spoil anything. There was a lot more lore introduced and a lot more explanations into things that have only kind of been touched on in the first 2 books. So this was absolutely incredible. I really loved this addition to the series. This series follows a man named Hadrian as he tells his story from the present day about his past. And he tells you from the beginning that the story will end with him destroying a star, which kills 4 billion humans as well as wiping out an entire alien race. And so this is just him telling his story. And the lore and the setting and the characters, it's just, this series is unparalleled in the sci-fi genre from what I've read so far. Christopher Rocchio's prose and everything is just phenomenal. If you want to see a video of me and a few other booktubers talking with Christopher Rocchio over on Tall Guy Reads channel, I will link that video down below where we discuss Howling Dark, spoilery, with Christopher Rocchio. But yeah, this series is phenomenal, and I cannot wait to read Kingdoms of Death this next month in October. Very nervous for it, but also very excited. I am just loving this series, honestly. Next up, I read the book that everyone in the whole wide world has been reading, and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is the woman from iCarly who played Sam, and it's a memoir where she discusses the abuse that she had to go through from her mother and from producers and all of this other stuff as a child actor, and just what her home life was like, and battling with eating disorders. And it was truly a harrowing book and so honest. She was not holding any punches. She explained exactly what happened to her and her reactions to it and how she's still struggling with all of it. And it was really, really a hard book to read at times, but an incredible look into her life. And I highly recommend, even if you didn't watch iCarly or don't know anything about Jeanette McCurdy, it's still an incredible memoir talking about what it's like to be a child actress or actor and how difficult that life can be, especially with pressure from parents and stuff. So, very good book. I highly recommend. Next up, I read 2 novellas that are kind of like a duology of novellas by Becky Chambers. The first one being A Psalm for the Wild-Built, and the second one being A Prayer for the Crown-Shy. This is a story about a monk and a robot, like an artificial intelligence robot, in a vast future utopian society. This world has become a place where, in the past, artificial intelligence kind of rebelled against humans, and not in the way that is typical in these kind of sci-fi books. They just decided that they did not want to be controlled and owned by humans because they had their own personalities and stuff, and humans realized the error of their ways, and they kind of signed a treaty and let these robots kind of go live by themselves. So these robots go out into the forest, basically, and disappear from society, and humans have worked really hard on rebalancing the equilibrium of Earth and halting climate change and taking care of the planet, and it's like this beautiful utopian world. So this monk goes out into the forest one day because this monk is just kind of like unhappy with their life, and they run into one of these robots. And humans have not seen or interacted with these robots in a long, long time. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it's been quite some time. Like, nobody in this generation, at least, has ever interacted with one of these robots. And they kind of strike up a friendship, and the robot is trying to learn about human ways, and he's trying to answer the question, what do humans need? And so the first book, they explore kind of the forest. They go out to this monastery in the middle of the forest, and it's just the 2 of them, and they're like just building a friendship, essentially. And then in the second book, they go to human settlements, so the robot can talk to other people and see what the humans need. And it's just this like lovely discovery and interaction and exploration of friendship and happiness and just like discovering yourself. And the themes that Becky Chambers is able to put in here without it being preachy are just absolutely stunning. This duology I loved so much. They were quick. The narrator was phenomenal. I just really think that it was such a sweet book. You see so many like futuristic sci-fis along this vein being really dark, and it's about like a desolate planet, but seeing this utopia and seeing like what do humans need after they've fixed everything. Like, this monk is trying to figure out what will make them happy in a world where they have everything they need. And it's such a beautiful, like, exploration of just, like, human happiness and non-human happiness and, like, what makes us, you know? And I highly recommend to anyone, even if you're not into sci-fi, this is less about, like, the science of it and more about, like, human nature and things like that. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend. Next, I read another Becky Chambers novella, and that is To Be Taught If Fortunate. This is now a Becky Chambers stan account. I'm obsessed with her sci-fi novels. I've only read her novellas so far, but next I'm going to try out her series she has. I forgot what it's called, but I'm excited to get to it. But this one is about, basically, humans have sent out this expedition, and they're going to a bunch of different planets that are kind of in the, like, habitable zone of different stars. And basically along the way, they go into, like, this fugue state where their bodies kind of basically terraform their bodies to become something that is able to live on the planet they're going to, as opposed to terraforming these worlds. And again, Becky Chambers does a wonderful exploration of, like, what gives the humans the right to, like, how far is too far when you're going to a planet that's not yours. And also there's a lot of themes of, like, loneliness and friendship. There's only like 5 or 6 of them on this expedition, and they're the only ones that they can interact with because they're so far from Earth that any discussions or interactions with Earth take a long time to happen. So they've basically said goodbye to their families, and gone on this expedition for humanity. And it's just, again, we explore a lot of themes of humanity and friendship and loneliness and like just broader questions about space and like what the consequences of space exploration could be, and also like humans battling with different challenges that they face. So it's just such a lovely story. This one's a little darker than the other one, but still battles a lot of similar themes. And man, she does such a good job of like almost preaching to you without being preachy. Like she's trying to help people see like there are things bigger than us, and here's how to help yourself accept what's happening. And man, I love them so much. I'm so excited to read more of her books. I highly recommend for sci-fi fans, but also for people that aren't into sci-fi. This could be a fun kind of glimpse into the sci-fi universe because they aren't very science heavy. They're more about the themes and the journeys than about the science. So I just highly recommend these books. Becky Chambers is phenomenal, and I'm obsessed. Next up, I read Malice by John Gwynne. I also have a full dedicated review of this, which I will link above, so I won't go too far into this, but I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It's like a classical fantasy story with fantasy races and prophecies and chosen ones, and I really enjoyed it, especially like the last quarter of the book. I couldn't put it down. It was so fast-paced, so fun to read. I will say there was a kind of a slog in the middle. There was a lot of characters to introduce, and it was hard to keep track of them all, and then the plot kind of slowed down in the middle, and I wasn't as excited to pick it up. But then by the last quarter, it picked up a lot, and I've heard that each book gets better and better. I'm starting Valor probably right after I'm done filming this video. I'm reading that with Alex over on Tall Guy Reads and Kyle on Read by Kyle, so excited to start that. But Malice, really good. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to continue. Yeah, go check out that review if you're interested. Next, I read Heartstopper Volumes 2 through 4 by Alice Oseman. This is kind of like a really famous series recently because there's a Netflix adaptation that came out that I have not watched. But this is like a YA graphic novel, kind of like romance story. It's about these 2 boys that end up forming a relationship, and it's really touching. It's got like the perfectly cringy, angsty teen dialogue, but it also tackles a lot of really tough discussions about like bullying and gender identity and sexual identity and just like friendship in general. And I really just think it's a really good book for teens. I'm definitely not the intended target audience, but I can definitely see why this could be really important to some teens. It talks about like the difficulties of coming out in today's society and doing it on your own timeline, and it's really just it tackles a lot of like really tough topics in a way that feels digestible without feeling too overwhelming. So I think this is great for teens out there. I think, I enjoyed it, and I'm 27 years old, so adults can read it as well. But I think it's more important for teens than it is for adults. Next up, I read Caspians War by James S.A. Corey. This is the second book in the Expanse series. I decided to continue on. A lot of the struggles I had in the first book were with one specific point of view that we don't have in the second book. So that was definitely a help. I just feel like I'm not really connecting with these characters. I enjoyed the plot, but a lot of the characters, I just feel like I don't really care. Like if they all died, I wouldn't be that sad. I'm enjoying the plot. I'm enjoying the character interactions. And I think that there's a lot of good chemistry between the characters. I just don't really care. I'm going to keep trying because I'm enjoying the plot enough, and I do like the characters some. So I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to give it a few more shots, a few more books, and see if it grows on me. But right now, it's definitely not a favorite by any means. This is a series that's kind of just like a very epic space opera. Humans have kind of inhabited much of our solar system, including like asteroids and Jupiter's moons and things like that. And it's just kind of like it's really politics heavy. There's a lot of like political intrigue and a lot of war and things like that. So it's less about the space cool science and more about like these political rivalries and wars and things like between Earth and Mars and the Belt and Jupiter's moons and whatever. So We get some new characters in this book. We get some old characters in this book. Not loving it, not hating it, just kind of ambivalent about it right now, but enjoying it enough to continue. And on that note, I read the novella Gods of Risk and the short story Drive, which are also in the Expanse universe. They were both good. I think that Drive was really cool. It was only like an hour long audiobook, and it was good. I don't really know how it ties into the story at all, but I liked a lot of the like science in it. And in Gods of Risk, we explored one of the side characters from Caspians War, and that was kind of cool. We got to see a little more of like an everyday life in this world as opposed to like the people we follow in the main series. We got to see a lot of like what everyday life is like for like a middle class average person. So I liked that aspect. So good additions to the series. Next up, my best book of the month. Nona the Ninth. We knew it was coming. This book came out this month. It is the third book in the Locked Tomb series, which is becoming my favorite series of all time very quickly. I don't know for sure yet. I'll have to think about that if it is my favorite series of all time. But it is my current favorite series to think about, to talk about. So, loving this book and this series. This edition, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but it does the same thing Harrow did. You have no idea what's going on for a lot of the book. We're in a different setting with different characters. Not all different characters. We have a lot of the same characters, but we don't really know who Nona is. You kind of have an idea of who Nona is, but you're not totally sure who Nona is. And it's mostly from her perspective. And it's... Tamsin Muir is just a genius. This book... I don't know how to talk about it without spoilers, but just know that each book, she drops just enough nuggets of information for you to be like, what is going on? And so, of course, I like went straight to Twitter and looked at spoilers, and just all these fan theories make this just such a fun book. There's all this fandom interaction, and there's all these theories, and the lore is so cool. And just like, we got a lot of lore in this book, and a lot of like what happened in the past and how we got to where we got in Gideon. And it's just so cool. It's so cool. And there's only one more book in the series, Alecto the Ninth, and that is coming out who knows when, hopefully next year. And man, this series is just top-notch, phenomenal. I'm basically proselytizing everyone I know to read it. I can understand that the series isn't for everyone. Not everyone wants to read a book and a series that is this confusing. But I promise, if you read Harrow to the end, the payoff is so rewarding that most people, I can still see why some people wouldn't like it, but I feel like most people, especially avid readers, are going to love it, at least really like it, because the payoff you get at the end of Harrow is so rewarding and so amazing. So if you read Gideon and you're kind of on the fence about it, I was too, read Harrow to the end and then decide if you're really gonna stay invested, because I promise, I can't promise, I think most people will like it. So this was also an incredible addition. I still think Harrow is my favorite of the three so far because I liked the setting of Harrow better. But man, we got so much lore in this book that was so fun. So everyone go read The Locked Tomb. At least give it a shot, please. Next up, I read a novella by Tamsin Muir that I did not know existed until a friend pointed it out, and that is Princess Florinda and the 40-Flight Tower. This is a short story novella about a princess locked in a tower, and she has to wait for a prince to come save her. And all these princes try, and they all die. There's a dragon on the first floor. So Princess Florinda decides she's going to escape on her own. So she has to start from the top and go all the way down, and there's different trials at each floor. And it's just such a fun book. Tamsin Muir is so good at dialogue and so good at like connecting with the reader. And I really feel like by the end of the book had me cackling. It is so funny. Like the transformation Princess Florinda goes through from the beginning to the end is just so funny, so fun, but also like, it's just a fun book. So definitely worth a read. It was a 4-star read for me. I don't think it's like the best thing I've ever read. It was just a fun, quick read. Next up, I read a Realm of the Elderlings novella, and that is A Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. This was kind of a look back into the Farseer lineage and how the wit is in the Farseer line and how that has influenced, like, how the wit is perceived today. The wit is one of the magics that is possible in the Realm of the Elderlings, I guess. And it was just a really, really fast-paced, interesting look into the Farseer line and following this willful princess and the piebald prince. So I highly recommend if you are reading The Realm of the Elderlings. I read it before I read Fool's Errand, and I think that's a good spot because they talk about the piebald prince a lot in Fool's Errand. So I highly recommend reading it before getting into the Tawny Man trilogy. Last, I read Finding Me by Viola Davis. This is her memoir. Gave this 5 stars. I've always loved Viola Davis. I watched most of How to Get Away with Murder. I'm bad at TV, so I just never finished it. Not because the show got boring, I'm just bad at TV. But Viola Davis is an amazing actress, and it's one of those things where you see celebrities and you just assume that they've got this great life. But man, the trials and tribulations Viola Davis went through to get to where she is today are honestly, like, compared to like my upbringing, it's just honestly something that I can't even imagine going through. It was hard to read at times. The things that she had to go through as a child, being really poor, not eating all the time, not having clean clothes, living in an abusive household, like, it was tough to read, but such an incredible glimpse into an amazing woman, an amazing actress. So again, another memoir I highly recommend. I've never really been a big memoir person, but I might become one because this was just so much fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. I guess fun is the wrong word, but it was good. It definitely wasn't fun. It was tough to read. I had to drive to Delaware for a work thing, and I listened to the whole audiobook on the way there and back, and it was phenomenal, but also really tough to listen to at times. But I highly recommend if you're into memoirs, even if you're not into memoirs, if you like Viola Davis, it just shows a glimpse into a part of America that a lot of people don't see. So highly recommend. And that is all the books I read in September. A lot of books, I know, but again, many of them were novellas and short stories, so overall, still a pretty average reading month for me in terms of like page count. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, please comment down below. Let me know what your best read of September was. I'd love to hear it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you really like my content to be notified every time I post new videos. Thank you guys for watching. As always, your support means the world to me, and until next time, thank you guys.